Welcome to New Perspectives on Integral and Transformational Learning, hosted by Auro University and Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Surat, mountain in South Carolina. Few words about this initiative. It is a platform for exploration of new in integral education, social development, integral yoga topics, and art and culture. Our aim is to facilitate presentations and interactions of different experts and researchers in different fields of endeavor, creating an interdisciplinary and interactive platform for all perspectives, where all perspectives may find their true place, and leading to more harmonious and comprehensive ways of living. Today is a topic of the importance of vital education in evolutionary perspective, which is usually, vital education is usually overlooked in the modern system of education, which became digital and technology oriented. For this panel discussion, we invited two prominent speakers and mentors in this field, Ameeta and Anuradha Agrawal, the founders of the famous Gnostic Center in Delhi and of the International Center of Studies. I am myself privileged to be associated with this educational institution for nearly 2 decades, and I am very impressed with the quality of their work and achievements in the fields of education and consciousness studies. First panelist, Mehra. Please allow me to introduce Ameeta in few words. She, since the age, had one dream: to change the educational system of India. And after completion of college, joined Mirambika. Mirambika is the free progress school in Delhi. As a teacher for 4 years, she became grounded in educational philosophy of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Over the years, Ameeta has conducted courses and workshops, to mention only a few, explorations towards a new creation of the self and society, the science of living, meditation for inner growth and cultivating presence, etc., etc. Ameeta's published works include self-discovery books such as Dhyana, Meditation for Inner Growth, Abhaya, Karma Yoga, Perfection in Work, and Sadhana, a guide to self-mastery. She is also the Gnostic Center's journal, The Awakening Ray. She won the Outlook Business Women of Worth Award 2018. Ameeta heads India's leading stud farm, Usha Stud, a very beautiful place. In the words of the Veda, the dawn, Usha, is Ashvavati, Vajinivati. She arrives with her horses, which symbolize the illumination of the divine. So Usha Stud became a symbol for manifestation of a new consciousness in life. With this brief introduction, I would request Ameeta to address the audience. Please, Ameeta. Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you so much for your kind words, and thank you for inviting me to be present here today on this very interesting subject of the vital education and its significance in the evolutionary life and perspective. I'd like to begin my brief introduction with the question of what is the vital, and how and why is it important in the evolutionary scheme of life and things to educate the vital. I'd like to read from the science of living about the vital being in us, and this is an important definition by the mother. The vital being in us is the seat of impulses and desires, of enthusiasm and violence, of dynamic energy and desperate depression, of passion and revolt. It can set in motion everything, build up and realize. It can also destroy and mar everything. It seems to be, in the human being, the most difficult part to train. It is a long labor, requiring great patience, and it demands a perfect sincerity. For without sincerity, one will deceive oneself from the very first step, and all endeavor for progress will go in vain. Now, it's interesting that the mother mentions about how difficult it is to train the vital and educate the vital, because we find that vital education has not been taken up in our formal education system, mainly for that reason. And there are about 3 or 4 important reasons why the refinement and education of the vital is not taken up in formal education. But the first most simple explanation is that it's very difficult to train. And there are 2 others that I found very interesting when I was reading through vital education. The mother mentions that there are 2 issues. One is that there is a sense in our English Western societies that the aim of life is to be happy. And the vital, unfortunately, if that is the aim of life, then there is no need to train and educate the vital, because then you will do whatever it takes to become happy, if that is the aim. So the mother says that is a distortion of a very deep aim, which is that the aim of life is to be part of the delight of being, of existence, and that there is a certain bliss and a certain delight in the very existential structure of the universe. And the aim of our life is to find that very subtle, very refined delight in life, in the rasa of life. The aim of life is not a vital aim of becoming happy at all costs. But if that is taken as the aim of life, which most societies do and believe in, then of course educating the vital becomes secondary and not primary, because then it is about self-aggrandizement, doing whatever it takes to become happy, and any means is all right, as long as in the end you get what you desire. So desire, the pursuit of whatever one desires becomes the main aim of life. Now, I wanted to bring this out because it's a very subtle aspect of vital education, and the reason why so much the focus on vital education is so minimal in our education. The second aspect that I found very interesting in vital education is the importance that of the mind in the vital. Now, it's very interesting that in children, the vital is far more developed than the mind. So there's a beautiful place where she says, of all education, vital education is perhaps the most important and indispensable. And she says children have a far more developed vital. And therefore, it is very important to begin the refinement and education of the vital at a very young age. In fact, starting at 3 to 5 years is when vital education should begin, because children's vitals are far more dominant at that time, and they are much more in touch with their own vital. So why is vital education important from an evolutionary perspective? What is the reason that we are here today deliberating on vital education, on the vital, the importance of it? The main reason is because for the evolutionary growth of consciousness, for the next step in evolution, which is what Sri Aurobindo's yoga and what his integral education model is about, that education is a means for the growth of one's consciousness and the growth and progress of society and the world. Now, if that is the aim of education, then the vital is that part of our being that is the most important to convert if one wants to live a divine life. If one wants to live divinely, you cannot live divinely with just a refined and transformed mind. If the vital being is haywire, is given into impulses, desires, is unregenerated and unrefined, the higher forces of the divine life cannot come into the being. Now, this is a very important point that I found is subtle but extremely important to understand that its role in the evolutionary perspective. Why do we need the vital, and why is it important to refine it? So, if you see in society, you see today, you read the newspapers or your NDTV app or whatever it might be, CNN, you will see violence, brutality, almost on a daily basis. If you see the ills that we are trying to cope with in life, mostly they are to do with the vital region of our life. They're to do with the uncontrolled, unbridled energies that young people and older people who are unable to control their vital being suffer from. And therefore, it is important that the vital is refined. It is brought into the light. It is educated, and that can be done through various means. But the chief of which is a very important practice that I must say that the Gnostic Center has been steeped in from kindergarten or preschool to higher education, which is the practice of self-observation and self-organization, to learn to observe oneself, to be self-reflective, to learn to recognize and understand the different impulses that drive one, to see the light and the shadow in ourselves on a daily basis, to be able to reflect and to be able to see when one is angry and why, or when one is depressed, why is one depressed? If one falls down, to be able to pick oneself and bring one into the light. So this self-observation and self-organization of the being is a central practice in the education of the vital, which can be done by teachers, it can be practiced by young children, it can be practiced by adults, by anybody who at whatever age, and it has to be suited. The methodologies is suited for the age group, but it is an essential practice. The second important practice for the refinement and education of the vital is the practice of the cultivation of beauty and the refinement of the senses. So a lot of, if you see in the ashram school, the mother gave a lot of importance to theater, to music, to dance, to uplifting the being to its higher form, instead of leaving it in its more gross way. And that refinement of the senses through observation, discrimination, discernment, concentration and bringing an ingathering of one's being is an extremely important practice in the vital transformation and vital refinement. And I would say in children especially, when in Lavani, when we have young children, the love of heroism, the love to become heroic, to be able to do things not for oneself, but for a higher good, for a higher purpose, is another very important inculcation or practice that we try and bring in through all our curriculum and our work. So with that, I think I would just ask Anuradha to take you through the work of the Gnostic Center, the different aspects, and do it in a more concrete way. And then we could come back to some of the questions of how to inculcate vital education in both higher education curricula and in school curriculum. You know, the two chapters, one is the science of living, and then where the mother has gone into depth on vital education and how to train one's own vital. Then there is the chapter on the four austerities. Again, there's a chapter on vital education there. There's several, she's written a lot on vital education, and so have Sri Aurobindo, and so have many other authors who have been Rudolf Steiner and several other authors, good educationists, have all touched upon it. But somehow there has been, what should I say, a gap between what has been written and what is being practiced. And that is a gap that we need to address and find out how to overcome. Thank you. Vladimir,
very wonderful. And yes, I'm here. Thank you, Ameeta, for this beautiful introduction. Vital education and importance of it in the present educational system. And may I now introduce Anuradha Agrawal, just in few words. He is a teacher and teacher educator by training. She has been engaged in the field of education, integral education, since 1986 through teaching, research and curriculum. She facilitates courses in integral education online and on-site, and for parents, homemakers and professionals, such as scripting pathways of change, integral education from reflection to action, empower. Anuradha co-edited the Gnostic Center's journal, The Awakening Ray, and authored a number of articles. She has also been a part of creating several learning resources based on the integral paradigm. Without further ado, I request Anuradha to address the audience, after which we will have a question and answer session. So please put all your questions into the box of questions and answers, which will be answered at the end of this session. Thank you. Please, Anuradha.
Thank you, Vladimir. Namaskar. So I'm going to focus on, like Ameeta said, the gap between the ideal and the practice. And since we started in 96, and in fact one of the reasons we started the Gnostic Center was precisely to explore and try to bridge this gap, first of all in our own lives, and through that to discover and share ways to do it. And the way the work evolved, it evolved very organically. In fact, we began with the older people, professionals, and then later we started a preschool. But I'm not going to go chronologically. I'm going to just share with the emphasis on what are some of the ways we have adopted to work on this aspect of integral education, the vital. Beauty is his footprint, showing us where he has passed. This is a line from Savitri by Sri Aurobindo. And, in today's time, like Ameeta also referred, imagine a world where beauty, nobility, and grace, if they were to form the heart of each individual. Imagine a world where love, trust, and friendship lay at the core of each interaction. What a safe and also a sane world it will be. What a joy to live in. Now, this is the potential of the vital when it is informed by its higher self, by its deeper aspects, and the psychic, the soul. There is a spontaneous nobility. This is what needs to be evoked and to be experienced. One of the, I think, the errors that has happened in education, one is that not taking up vital education for reasons what Ameeta enumerated. The other is when they even take up something of it, they try to do it through the mind. Moral education, value education. It is as if you are told not to lie, you will just overcome the impulse of falsehood within yourself. And that is a mistake. Because vital has its own power. It is a seat of desires, impulses, and it is not going to listen to the mind because it is more powerful than the mind unless the mind has been trained and has a very strong willpower. And then what happens when you go to sleep? So there is all the things. So the vital needs to be tackled head on through various agencies, through the physical, through the mind, through the vital itself, and through the psychic. So just to share a little bit, and this can be done only by somebody who's experienced it, who's experimented with it, and come up with their own methods. Then it has the power. I would like to share my screen and run you through certain slides. Give me a minute. Yeah. So this is the overview. Like we have worked with various age groups, preschoolers, school students, youth, teachers, professionals, and also the learning materials. Now, like I said, our endeavor, first of all, is to create beauty. And when we set up Gnostic Center, we were very conscious about it, that it should be a place which simply gives you the experience of beauty, gives you the experience of silence. I would like to just show you a few images to give you an idea. Some of you might have visited the center. Others, I hope, will visit. But just take a moment to savor. This is the foundation stone which was laid in 1996 when the center started. We were privileged to get the relics of Sri Aurobindo 10 years afterwards in 97, and this is the shrine. This is one of the, you can say, mantras for vital education. The real difficulty is always in ourselves, not in our surroundings. That's the health center and the cafe. Guest house, quietude. Conference space, synthesis. You will notice even the names, quietude, synthesis, they evoke something, they aspire towards something. And that's the preschool, Lavani, the future for 2 to 5-year-olds. And then we have a campus in the Himalayas. Contact with nature is very important for working on the vital. So beauty is the key thing, and then there is the factor of harmony. Harmony, again, first of all, yes, there is harmony to be established within ourselves, but as you work, when you form a group, there needs to be harmony within the group. And you may be a spiritual center, you have come together for a higher purpose, you're all connected through the embrace of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, yet the ego is very much there. So this has been a very, very conscious aspect of our work, which you will not find written in publications and all, but it is something which every day we are dealing with. And we are being guided, like Ameeta mentioned, self-reflection, self-observation, self-organization. Whatever she's talking about, it is something which we have been trying to practice. And we still have a long way to go, but we are very aware that unless we work on our vitals and we establish, and I'm sure like Auroville, where Vladimir is from, it's the same thing. It is the importance, whatever undertaking we take up, the harmony within the group, within individuals is most important. And that's a very great aspect of vital education. When you work with children also, or with students, or any group, to establish principles of harmony. I want to, let's share screen go on. Oh yeah.
Anuradha, if you
I'm
are
trying to
sharing
share
the
the screen.
Yes, if you share the screen, there is a button there. If you are showing
somehow
the
it's not
video, for
coming
example.
on.
No?
It's not coming on somehow.
Yes.
Can you help me with this?
Yes, it should come on. You share and then you choose the. But before you choose it, can you click that is there improve video? If it is video, then it will be improved. There is a button.
Okay, there's no video. I just want to share a URL.
Okay, then it should work.
Can you see?
Just click on share screen.
Okay.
I can't see.
Yeah, now it's
click on share.
Right.
Okay.
Can you see now?
Yes, great.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Right. So this is our preschool, Lavani, and for 2 to 5-year-olds. And here you will see this is right in the front, a place where beauty is a constant ideal, beauty of the soul, sentiments, thoughts, and of actions. Now, how do we work on this? like Ameeta shared, the mother has spoken about three aspects: working on the senses, working on aesthetics, and working on character transformation. I want to share something from a teacher's report. We send reports on each child every 6 months. I want you to see. Now, this is a passage I've taken. This is something which actually happened, and the teacher wrote about it. And there are innumerable examples like that. Developing the sense of beauty in this child's work and actions. While closely working, we noticed that he would do in a messy way. So these are 2-year, 3-year-olds. So obviously it is at that level, working in a messy way and not handling things properly, being hurried. So we took up this to work on it. How to bring beauty in his work and action. Now, because he was an understanding child, we tried to give him a demo, first of all. We created a beautiful atmosphere, playing soft and soothing music to create neat and most beautiful piece of. So creating the psychological environment for the child to be at ease and to feel inspired to create something beautiful. And then we were also going to emphasize that we were doing this for ourselves, not to show, not to please somebody, not to impress. Now, these are even today, like when we look at our Vital, these motives are playing within us, to please, to impress, to make an impression, etc., to gain approval. So at times, whenever we would see this child being hurried and all, we will say, remember, we would remind. And then secondly, we gave responsibility. We allocated some spaces, bookshelves, etc., and the child had to organize those shelves. And then it would be appreciated. One would go around looking at, who's done it well, and inculcating that discrimination, that discernment. Now, what I want you to focus on here, what is happening, this is the outer thing, which it's a report. But what is happening, what is the teacher actually busy with? And because we want to see how to work on things. So first of all, there is a close observation of each child individually. That's why the teacher knows how to approach this child and how is the child expressing a lack of vital refinement. Each child does not express it the same way. Each person does not express it the same way. So there is individual observation and then individual approach. And then approaching the child based on their nature, interest, creating the learning environment, instilling a love of progress instead of seeking approval. Now, you see, it's a very subtle shift. If you read Mother's chapters on integral education, you will notice that she talks about this love for progress, urge for progress in psychic education. So actually, it is inculcating, bringing forth the psychic, without obviously using all these words with these little kids, but shifting them to get in touch with, their own urge for progress, inculcating self-awareness, and also acknowledging and appreciating without making the child dependent on that appreciation. Doesn't mean that you won't acknowledge good work. Giving the child freedom to experiment, and these are 2-3-year-olds. We don't get this freedom, but this is being given to 2-3-year-olds. And like Sri Aurobindo speaks about in his chapter on moral education, that without freedom, a child has to experiment and from mistakes learn. And that is an element missing in our education hugely. Trusting and respecting the child, encouraging learning from others without judgment or competition, and evaluating the result of your inputs. So these are just to make it clear that, and this is happening on a daily basis. This is another extract on the character. Some other child helping to overcome aggression. Again, here you will see that they're using the physical to deal with the vital for this child by encouraging the child to participate in sports so that the extra energy is channelized, is used. So they have observed and found out that, look, there is too much energy in this child and that's not being utilized, so let's do this. Mind you, I'll repeat again, it's not the same for every child. For every child, the approach is different. Using the mind to deal with the vital. We provided various activities according to the nature, gave challenging work where he could utilize his mind constructively and quietly. Then, using the higher vital, we pointed out to him incidents when he would unintentionally hurt another person and how he felt, and what the developing the sensitivity to understand the situation and also intention of the other person, learning to read the body language, etc. And then the psychic. There is a story they do of the inner star, again coming in touch with the psychic, that there is a voice inside us, there is a presence which guides us, and to come in touch with it and to ask it what I should do. So, and the teachers say we cannot say we have achieved 100% success, but we can see growing, becoming less in him, and on rare occasions he shows. So this is a work in progress, and that is one of the challenges. Like, not only is it difficult, but it is often you don't see the results immediately, and that can be frustrating. That can also be, it can create doubt in oneself whether what one is doing is really having an effect. So that is also a challenge that one has to, and especially with little children. When they are in the preschool, they go away, and they some come back to us later, some don't. But to know that the seeds were sown and what has happened, sometimes we get to know, sometimes we don't. But that, I suppose, is true for every teacher. I would like to move on to the older children. Now, these children are studying in other schools. We do not have as yet a full-fledged school. We stop at preschool, and then we work with students from different schools, and then we have higher education courses and courses for professionals and all. So, but we do interact with lots of school kids, youth, etc. So, now what happens there with them is, just a minute, yeah. So we work through various workshops, summer programs and camps. Now the themes taken up with them are, you will notice that there is a difference, because now these are older children. So we organize workshops on courage, on beauty, coming in touch with nature, follow your dream, discovering your hidden treasures, adventure activities, a lot of physical, because their physical is developed and they enjoy the challenges, and creativity, etc. So this is how we work with the older children. Now these children range from 6 years to youth, to 16-year-olds. And next is the college youth. Now this is where, like I said, when we began with the older students and professionals, and a lot of work, Ameeta especially has done a lot of work in this area. These kind of workshops on fear, cause and cure, power of attitude, leadership, beyond violence, non-violence, these kind of things have been taken up with these are, if you are interested for more details, you can always go to our website and check them out. Another huge area of our work, almost since we started, has been teacher education, because this work has to continue. So we are only so many, and the more the teachers get trained and established in this, the better it is for. So we have done both in-service, pre-service, and our own integral education camps, etc. These are the three main things. Now here again, to give you an idea, what I would like to share with you, Ameeta mentioned the self-reflective journal. Now, if you notice here, in we do Bachelors of Elementary Education. These are after school. There is a 4-year teacher training program of Delhi University, and so they do their graduation plus a a teacher specialization course. And they come to us every year from different colleges for self-development workshops. So that itself is a very remarkable progress, I must say, in this course, BLEd course, that they have acknowledged to some extent that self-development should be part of the mainstream curriculum. We are encouraging them. We are hoping that they will extend it to, out of 4 years, they do it only for second year. We are hoping they will extend it to other years also, but let's see. Now, this student, we had worked on vital education, on attitudes and self-observation, and we had given the assignment for them to do at home to maintain a self-reflective journal. So I'm just showing you a little bit of, submitted by one of the students. This is her work, 2015. So simple things, talking to one of my friends, saw somebody falling on the road,
see it.
ran towards her.
Can you make it?
Sorry? Can you see?
We don't see it. No, we see only one slide, talk workshops.
Do you see the journal? Or you don't?
No, we don't. We don't.
You don't? I'm sorry. Now do you see?
No, can you restart sharing? Stop sharing and restart sharing.
I'll do that.
Yes. And choose
can
your
you see
desk.
Now?
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Yeah?
Yes, we see. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Vladimir. So these are small incidents. You're standing on the road, saw a friend falling, ran towards her, moved her bicycle, helped her out. Now she's identifying that this was which part of my being I acted from. So I acted from the vital. There was a desire to help my friend. Went to the tailor to get something stitched, and he said something and I was disappointed. Again, identification with impulses and emotions. And I wanted to look smart and presentable. We tell them these are not going to be marked, and this is for yourself, and they just share with us. And I find that they're pretty honest. And I want to emphasize these are students from mainstream colleges, Delhi University colleges, with no background in integral education. And just with 7 or 8 sessions that we do with them in a year, this is the impact. So, although at one level, yes, it is very difficult, vital education, but we have found that when you do try it, because there seems to be a need in people, they're seeking it, they're wanting it. And so when they get it, they respond. So, 75% of your work is done because the other person is collaborating. So that is also very important to remember. And this I got just 2 weeks back, a feedback from one of the students. So we meet them in all their lifetime, we meet them only 8 times, right? And they are 19, 20-year-olds when they come to us. And we maybe never meet them again. And so I was very happy to receive this feedback. I'll again share the screen. Can you see it? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
So she wrote, she came to us when she was in second year, now she's in 4th year. And she says in second year, we were taken through these workshops. I was so unaware at that time, I didn't recognize the value of the things or skills you taught us. However, I wrote the journal and all. Now, due to the lockdown, I got time and chance to know myself more. I read about the philosophy of the mother, and I started writing gratitude journals and started healing myself. And it was an amazing journey. I realized the value of your teachings. So it is not to say that everybody gives us this feedback, but even a few students, and this is, I'm just sharing one. In all our courses, we have, students coming back to us and also taking more courses, and it is a real joy to see how they are engaging with it. Another aspect of our work is so in these, self-development workshops, BLEd, we work through a lot of action research projects, and we work on all these issues, anger, aggression, and these issues come up from the students. So in our first session, we asked them, what would you like to work on? And being 19, 20-year-olds, generally over the years, it's been 20 years now we have been doing this work, over 20 years. So they come up with these kind of issues, lack of confidence, insecurity, anger, aggression, need for approval, relationships, communication, gender issues, etc. And then we take these up. And then we have on-site courses, which is what the center began with in 96 and goes strong with it. And then later on, we introduced in 2008 or 9, we introduced online courses also. And Vladimir is one of the faculty for our online courses. So here again, these are different themes, coping with stress, relationships, new creation of the self, which Ameeta facilitates, scripting pathways of change, power of attitude. These are just some of the themes. And then a lot of art and craft workshops, calligraphy, pottery, and music concerts. These also form part of the work. Again, just a minute. Now all of us have to learn these webinar skills. So, next. So you see all these, just to give you a visual
we do
idea.
not see any.
Again,
Yeah,
we
do
see?
not see new picture.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay. Again, now you see?
Yes.
See you? Yeah. So this is just to give you a visual idea of, things happening at the center, various concerts and all, and retreats happening at our Himalayan campus with nature, with self-reflective activities, etc. And then we have, over the years, we have come up with a lot of, the research has generated a lot of books and monographs and journals. So, like this is a series which Ameeta came up with. And we have the journal, The Awakening Ray, which has, since 97, every year it comes out. And it is a journal on growth of consciousness. Just 1 minute. Sorry, give me a moment. So we create booklets on various things when we hold. Again, right? Every time I change the thing, it stops. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you have to choose desktop for, and then we will see whatever you. Otherwise, you choose on. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Can you see now? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, we see. Thank you.
Right. So a lot of resources like that have come out on various topics. This is again just to give you an idea. You can see this is a booklet on vital education, and everywhere there is an emphasis on practice, tools, how to deal with things, because the philosophy is there, it is all there. You go to the source, you read Sri Aurobindo's and Mother's books, you read other books, and then to bridge it, like I said in the beginning, that is what is important. Just a final glimpse of at all the on-site and online courses end in a kind of a monograph, a thesis. So the person works on oneself. So when we evaluate also, we don't evaluate how academically you know things. I'll share again because it might have stopped sharing. Can you see now? Yeah?
Yes,
so
thank you.
This is one student's work. And over 20 years, you can imagine that there has been a lot. But the main important thing here is that the person has gone through a process over several months, kept a record, worked on oneself, and then come up with this research. This is not an academic research, though it has an academic component and structure to it, but it is lived, experimented, tried out, and all the research also documents the roadblocks, the failures, and then what one found oneself. So it is very, very important because it is not from a book. No cut and paste is allowed. It's not that you say, okay, the mother has said, do this and your vital will be fine. You have to experiment, and you might come up with a new exercise, and you might come up with a new insight. And that is the importance of this. I personally have taken, as a student, several courses at the Gnostic Center, and I have gained with each and every one of them. So, it is something, even though I'm part of the Gnostic Center, I'm pretty happy with the format we have come up with. And I can say from the other side also that it works. Now, I would like to just end with something the mother says on vital education. Hopefully you can read it, or I'll just read it out to you. In her chapter on the vital education, the mother says, life seems to endow everyone not only with the possibility of expressing an ideal, but also with contrary elements, representing in a concrete manner the battle he has to wage and the victory he has to win for the realization to become possible. Consequently, all life is an education, pursued more or less consciously, more or less willingly. In certain cases, this education will encourage the movements that express the light. In others, on the contrary, those that express the shadow. Ameeta said in the beginning that self-reflection, light and shadow, and these are concepts the mother writes about. And because the work is so difficult, the mother gives this mantra, which is a psychological truth, that whatever shadow I find in myself, there is also the light, its opposite in me. And whatever light I find in myself, I also have to look for the shadow and work on that. So there is hope. When I find something damning in myself, there is no cause for depression, because it only shows that there is its opposite in me. And when I find something wonderful, there is need for equanimity. There is no cause for a superiority complex or anything, because I know that there is a canker which I still have to work on. And this I find a very, very powerful and very helpful concept. And this is something which, again, to encourage the light and discourage the shadow, this is a work we have been engaged in with ourselves and in all the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha, for this beautiful presentation, and especially to show us that practically it is possible to do, not only theoretically to think about it, which is usually the case, as you rightly said. And so we open the session for questions and answers, and there are several questions already put forward here. I can see them. You can see them also in the question box. So you could pick up Ameeta or Anuradha, any of these questions. I can read them out also if you like, to you and to the audience. There is a question from Julian from in New York, Matagiri in New York. With the COVID crisis, school budgets are being and the first thing to be cut are often the arts. How would you prioritize trimming spending? What priority? Would you cut arts first and leave mathematics first or something? Would you like to answer this question, Ameeta or Anuradha? Who would like?
I think that when you have to, I think, it's not only, it's not the spending, whether you cut money for this or that. It's the, again, it's how you approach any subject. You can if your own vital is refined and rejuvenated, you can do it through art, you can do it through mathematics. Can also be an art form, as can history. So I think the question is perhaps not so much about cutting expenditure, but about increasing consciousness, which is what really the educators should be more thoughtful about. It's not how much money you have, it's what you do with the resources you have. And you can have all the expenditure for arts and yet teach art in a very old-fashioned way, without any kind of emphasis on refinement. So there's an art in nature too. So you don't need to. You can just walk out of your classroom and look at the beauty of the sky and the trees and the leaves. You can teach anything from anywhere. So I think the question is about do you have that refinement in your own consciousness as an educator? Do you see how each occasion of life can be an occasion to bring about an appreciation, a deep appreciation of beauty, of poetry, of artistic refinement? Or do you see things only in cut and dry sort of boxes?
So basically what you say, it boils down to not what we do, but how we do it.
And who does it. And I think the educator is so important in this kind of education, his or her own ability to reinvent herself and himself in all situations, whether it's COVID, whether it's lack of resources, whether it's having difficult circumstances to work with, or difficult children to work with, or orphans. So I mean, life throws challenges, and it's how you meet them and what you do with them that's important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. From my side, I would recommend this Awakening Ray to subscribe to. You will find many answers there, and very well organized material for educationists. There is another question to Anuradha. Anuradha, could you please elaborate a bit more on what you said, that nature is working on the vital? Thank you. This Anina Satorius.
Yeah, sure. So here again, I would like to share through an example of something that happened. I talked about the teacher students who come to us, these 19, 20. They are a giggly lot, and they have hardly any body awareness, although they are very self-conscious, but, closing the door, banging it. And for us, when they come to the Gnostic Center, which is a place which is very quiet and clean and all, it's like an attack, that this, and 40, 50 come. The groups are large, 50, 55 girls arriving, giggling, screaming at each other and all into that beautiful, quiet space. Now, a couple of years back, we took them to our Himalayan campus, the monks retreat, we said we'll do the workshops there as a 3-day retreat. And the first day was really challenging because their energies were all scattered. But then we saw, just being in the hills, and we went for a nature walk, and we just stood in the forest, and just before the sunset, and we stood in a line, and this is something Ameeta used to do with us, so I tried it with these students, 40, 50 of them, and we stood in a line, and we just became quiet and opened ourselves to nature and beauty around us. And they were totally quiet. And by the third day, just living there, we were having our sessions, but their whole energy changed. If we can tell them many times, be quiet, just being in nature, they imbibed and they found that space to be with themselves. They became aware of that need to be quiet, to spend time alone rather than, just be. They are really like post-it stamps otherwise. They stick to each other, even physically. When they meditate also, we do a meditation session, they cannot sit apart. They have to be in each other's space all the time. But the hills, the beauty, nature, brought in something which I think through words we could never teach. I hope that answers your question, Anina.
Beautiful, thank you. There is another question which is also quite a difficult one. How to convert hatred to harmony? How to respond to bullying from an integral yoga perspective? This is the question from Varsha Patel. It's kind of a challenging question. Ameeta, would you like to address this?
Well, I think one will have to go into the root of what causes hate and hatred. Again, it's best done when you check into yourself and find what arouses that feeling of hatred in yourself. What happens to you, and why you feel hatred towards somebody or something. And if you can pick up the point in yourself that causes it, then you can help the other person to also change it. The point is, you have that the way to do any kind of change in anybody else, it's not by giving a talk or a lecture and say, oh, this is what's going to happen to you, or it's not a good thing, or whatever it might be. It's actually, it's like a psychological operation that you always do on yourself first, to find out that point in yourself that also has experienced that emotion, or that feeling of hatred, or whatever it might be. It could be jealousy, it could be envy, it could be anything. And then find that, and then see, I have also felt it. Now it helps you to empathize and sympathize with that person. So maybe the response would be that ask the person questions. But why, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling? And take that person step by step to reflect and observe her own or his own feelings and reasons for that particular emotion, and then say, okay, well, what does it leave you with? How does it really affect another person, your hatred? Does it really change the situation, you feeling hatred? How can you change that experience between two individuals or relationship, for example? If you continue to have that vibration of dislike and hatred, what are you doing to the other person? And how do you change it to harmony? Can you change it by outer means, or does some sort of a psychological, what I would say, operation be required in yourself? So these are, I think, very important questions, and they need to be taken up from a deeper perspective, but always find the point in yourself where you can understand it and empathize, and then take that person along the journey of self-exploration, self-reflection, observation, and understanding. And the other thing about bullying, you see in children in classrooms that there's always somebody who's bullying another child or trying to bully. And I think that there's the whole psychology of the bully, but often there are ways of dealing with it. Some people feel that the only way to meet a bully is to not get bullied, to show him his place. But it's up to you to see what is the cause of that bullying. Why is that child bullying? And again, often to sit with somebody like that and ask him, what is happening to you? Why are you angry? And what are you doing this for? What is it that you want to achieve? What do you want? What do you want to get out of it? Often these kinds of questions help another person to understand their own behavior. I hope that's okay.
Thank you, Ameeta. So there is one more question here from Meenakshi. How can parents educate their own vital and support the vital education in the child at home, especially when they live in urban cities like Mumbai and the child goes to a regular school? Another challenging question.
Anuradha, why don't you attempt that?
Okay. I know that if you have an integral school, the work is easier in certain sense. And yet I wouldn't like to make this distinction between that integral education is or vital education is possible only in such schools and not in a regular school. If we look back at our own childhood, how we have grown up, some part of our vital has been worked upon, and one has to reflect on how that happened. Was it through parents, through friends, through books, through whatever? So there are always in life opportunities to work on one's vital. Now, a little child obviously cannot consciously work on it, so that's where the parents come in. For the parents to maximize opportunities, maximize experiences of life, maximize self-reflection, but most important, what we imbibed was because the parent lived it. If the parent lived something, we imbibed it. So that is the crux, to live it. And you cannot live the whole of vital education that I take, okay, mother has said these 10 points, now I have to live this. No. You have to start with whatever you resonate with or you feel is an area where you, either it's your strength or it is something you want to work on. And that is something which will transfer to the child. There is no, I think deliberately, Shrabind and mother have not given, a manual how to do it. That freedom has been given to us. That freedom to experiment, that freedom to acknowledge what is in us and then to start from there. So that is both difficult and also it is the wonder of it, that we are free to work in any which way. So, this is to start with yourself, create an atmosphere of beauty, principle of harmony, or other principles which strike you in the vital, when you will have to understand what is vital education. You will have to read what the mother and Sri Aurobindo have said. If you really want to work on this, go to the source, read that, see what appeals to you, and practice whatever of it you can, and then with the children. And Ameeta mentioned earlier heroism, for little, it depends again the age of the child. And children love stories, and through stories you can bring in a lot of things. We love stories, that's why we watch films. So something inspiring, something which creates those higher, gives an experience of the higher vital. That is the experience that has to be maximized. And music, art, all these things. Yeah, Ameeta wants to say something.
I just want to add one thing only. The first part of the question was, how does a parent educate herself? I think one other age besides, of course, the refinement with music, dance, beauty, flowers, fragrances, is, having a journal, starting a journal. As just a simple act of writing a journal to observe how your interactions with your own child have gone during the day. What are the shadows and the light? That means, what are the things that caused a shadow or a disturbance in your interaction with your own child, and what are the things that created harmony and beauty in your interactions? I think just noting that down, again, makes one self-conscious and also self-reflective. So writing a journal is a very good way of beginning one's own vital education. And then there is, I would recommend for those who are interested, there is a book by a compilation by A.S. Dalal called Living Within. And at the end of the compilation, there are 10 exercises that he has actually written out, 10 psychological exercises for self-mastery. There's a beautiful exercise there called self-observation and self-organization, which he's taken from the writings from Mother. And if you were to just simply practice that every day, you would become very, very conscious and very, very masterful. So, Vladimir had mentioned in the beginning that I have a stud farm and I deal with horses. Now, the whole thing with the energy of the vital is that it's like a wild horse. It just takes off, whether it's anger, whether it's enthusiasm, whether it's heroism. The vital energies are very strong. They're great. It's like a powerhouse. And the idea is to be able to discipline the vital like you would discipline and, bond with a horse. In the earlier days, and I want to bring this to you because those who are nature lovers and animal lovers will understand what I'm saying. That before Monty Roberts came in the past centuries, we always believed that horses needed to be, what should I say, controlled and curbed. So when you always said you broke a horse, you remember those Western movies you all saw when the cowboys, you would get onto the horse and break the horse and get onto the saddle and try and control, and the horse's spirit would have to break before the horse became tame. And now nobody talks about breaking horses. It's not done anymore. Now we talk about joining up with a horse. We talk about teaming up. We talk about in 20 minutes, if you take a wild horse, you can make it your friend just by a simple routine of it's called forward and retreat technique. Now, in the same way, there are techniques in education, in vital education, which have also become sublimated and refined. And I think the critical component and recipe, which I always find we forget and so simple, is love, is affection. The vital responds beautifully and wonderfully to affection. And that affection, if it's there in your heart, whether you express it or not, love, unconditional love as the general platform from which you operate, as you're operating system, like, in a computer, you will find that has a way of communicating, whether it is to an animal or to a human being, to a bird or to a book, to a pen or to a table. So I think this is something very, very profound, very deep, and very essential in the very consciousness of matter. And from matter, the consciousness of the vital energy of matter and material things. Vladimir?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I remember how I was impressed when I been to Usha's stud, and I saw how you deal with the horses, these parades when the horse comes out. Look at them with care and love, and they like to show off, like to be seen, they like to be appreciated, and from there they develop these new energies and new relationships. Beautiful, yes. And that's maybe the secret of your success in this business in India and in the world of breeding horses. Right. There is one more question. Because of lockdown, most of the schools are working online. How vital education can be possible through online education? It's an interesting question. Would you like to answer it?
Yeah. So, Anuradha, why don't you answer?
Okay, you can always add. So, like I shared, well, now the schools are going online. I don't know what they are teaching through online. Personally, I cannot speak about that. But like I said, in 2009, we went online. Now, this also depends. This question does not mention which age group because obviously it will vary with the age groups. If it is younger children, like I mentioned, stories, etc., are a very good way. But project work with slightly older children also, project work, and like Ameeta mentioned that even maths can have arts and all and where you bring in different aspects of one's nature to work on it, to maintain a self-reflective journal, to work on the sensorial skills. See, the age group I don't know, so my answer is not very focused for that reason because the answer will change as per the age group. So one works on various things and to understand each child. Now, who will work on it? Mainstream school, if they don't understand vital education, how are they going to work on it? When they don't work on it on site, they cannot work on it online. So only people who are working on it on site can then translate into online. As far as the older people are concerned, actually there was one slide which I didn't show you and it just struck me. This is from one of the courses like New Creation of the Self, which I mentioned. I wanted to show you the components. Now I have to find where it is. The components include things like working on transforming the character, working on just give me 1 minute. Read this one. Yeah.
Yeah, so this new creation of the self is actually an online course. And
yeah, it is an online course. That's right.
So a lot of work can be done online from all ages, from as long as exercises can be developed, worksheets can be developed. So much can be done.
I just want to, can I share the screen again, if it will allow me?
Art can be taught and experienced.
Can you see? Yeah? So these are, just to give you an idea, this is one course, New Creation of the Self, which is almost a year-long course, by the way. And here, these are the components. For 2-3 weeks, you work on, each component. So here is imagination, faith and trust, understanding the role of. So this is for older people, professionals. I was a student last year in this course. The power of will, aspiration and desire. Now this is not just the vital. There is the psychic involved, there is the mind involved, because as we grow, we have to work on everything. Yet it is the vital which creates maximum problems in being able to the willpower, the vital desires, etc., stand in the way maximum. So one has to work on the vital when one's work on this. Power of prayer, removal of obstructions, and transformation of character. So there are readings, there are, exercises, which one has to do, and it's a very intense course, very, very intense. Same way there are courses on power of attitude, etc. So one is dealing with it head on. The other is the whatever subject that one is teaching, whether it's history, psychology, to the way one does it and the consciousness of the learner, how you engage the consciousness of the learner in reflecting upon oneself, in understanding one's responses, in understanding what is the light, what is the shadow. If there was a concrete thing, which age group, what is being taught, then I could be more specific. But at the moment, I can say only this much. Ameeta, you want to add anything?
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you. Wonderful. There is one more question. With the new education policy that's going to be in place, there's some new education policy coming
Yes.
up. Don't you think that the beauty and harmony of the vital could be a part of the child's being in all schools? Dealing with bureaucracy is difficult, but after all, it's for the good of the society and future generations.
Yes. I think it can be definitely a part of every curriculum, and nothing can stop it. And, it has nothing to do with bureaucracy. It's about, I think the new education policy that's just come out for India is a very progressive, very open-ended, extremely policy where you can fit in a lot of this stuff. In fact, I must tell you that the genesis of this new education policy was actually a lot of work that was done by Dr. Kirich Joshi and Mr. Narendra Modi when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat at that time, and also in the 1988 education policy that Kirich Joshi framed for Rajiv Gandhi. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that this new education policy, a lot of its inspiration has come from Sri Aurobindo's integral education.
Thank you. Yes, basically, there are also very difficult questions, but which were partially answered, so that I didn't mention them, but maybe I will read them out from an anonymous attendee. We have being aware of everything still couldn't succeed. Maybe a lack of determination or motivation or consistency. How can we work on it? Maybe it already has an answer in the question, but...
No, it bears repeating, Vladimir. In fact, I want to go back to what I started with, that vital education and the refinement and transformation of the vital. The mother started with that it's the most difficult thing to do. It's the first line of the chapter on vital education. And I want to read it out because I want to empathize and sympathize and explain and understand that it is so difficult for all of us. We are all in the same boat. Of all education, Mother says, vital education is perhaps the most important, the most indispensable. Yet, it is rarely taken up and pursued with discernment and method. There are several reasons for this. First, the human mind is in a state of great confusion about this particular subject. Secondly, the undertaking is very difficult, and to be successful in it, one must have endless endurance and persistence and a will that no failure can weaken. So this is the two reasons. One, a general confusion of the mind on the methodology to adopt and the lack of discernment. And the second is that you have to continue on and on, because it's like you go one step forward and a one step backward. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. So the persistence and the willpower is very important to sustain. So I can understand why the gentleman wrote that, because it is an arduous task.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. There is also a question from Shruti Jain. Understanding of vital education is indeed different, even if few of the facilitators understand it. Not all will be at the same level of understanding. How can we ensure development of vital education for each child in our school? Can there be such insurance?
Anuradha, would you like to take that up?
So I see what I understand here are 2 parts to this question. One is that the levels will be different, the way the teachers work on it. they will be working at different levels. And the other is that each child, the vital education should happen. This difference will always be there, and it is good to have the difference, because each child also needs a different approach, and each child needs a variety of people to interact with. So uniformity is definitely not the idea. The freedom, the principle of freedom that I emphasized when I was speaking about it, which Robin and Mother so much emphasize, and if you read conversations of about the mother's interaction with teachers and all, you will see that this difference in teacher's approach is something she would encourage. So I would not feel worried about that, if that was a worry. The other part of how to ensure vital education for all child, if you are in the admin, if you are a person who has that, then of course it requires, right from the physical environment to the curriculum, to the pedagogy, to the evaluation, each and everything has to be looked at if you really want to bring it in. But most important, underlying all of it, is again these principles of beauty, harmony, love, freedom, trust, which help the vital to bloom. And yet at the same time, a firmness is also required. Because like the mother always emphasized, there is no freedom without discipline, and there is no discipline without freedom. So to understand that balance and to work with both, because often we make the mistake of, when there is freedom, we give lots of love to the child, everything. But then, like what Ameeta said in the beginning, if the aim of life is to be happy, then just let the child happy at whatever cost. So that is not. So you have to understand that it is a refinement. There is a lower side to the vital, and there is a higher side. And the higher side has to be encouraged. And the lower has not to be ignored or judged in that manner, but it has to be refined. The potential has to be brought out, because that also hides the light. Yeah. Ameeta, you want to add anything?
Ameeta, your microphone is muted, I guess.
You're
not fine here. Yeah, I can add just from my side, listening to this exploration of the vital, that vital feelings and emotions are very contagious also. And when we live in the society, it's very easy to catch, the feeling, the emotion, the vibration, and they speak about this in modern parlance. They speak that vibes are good or bad vibes, and that is happening already in the world. So it's very important to create an environment of beauty, of harmony. That's what Gnostic Center realized, and what we realized in certain schools in Auroville, and in certain schools in like Ambika school or something, that environment is very important, in which the vibes will be shared in a different way. There is also a very interesting question from Alok Mohanty, who asks Chitta Shuddhi. He comes back to the Yoga Sutras. Pranayama can play a role in purification of the vital. It can also facilitate in sense training. Can you kindly share your insights on the matter?
Vladimir, you're the expert there.
Well, not really. I know the text, yes. Right. But yes, of course, I can support this idea of Chitta Shuddhi or Chitta Vritti Nirodha Yoga, where the Chitta, the influences of our habitual response to things, is stopped, and we are able to distinguish or to discern the reality as such without influence of our habitual grooves of reaction and action and catching the vibes of whatever comes in unconsciously and becoming that. So, of course, it can play a great role, and especially pranayama can eventually lead us to the control by the mind over vital. And they even describe this in this way, that pranayama is the means of the our will, mental will. It becomes like a rope which is tied to the bird which tries to fly everywhere, but we can control the bird. So in a way, yes, it's a way to control the vital, which is again very questionable at the end, because how can you control the wind or catch the wind, as Arjuna says, with the hand? It is always there, pervading you and flowing through you. We live through this vital, catching different vibrations and emotions in the world. So it's again persistence, and again the mother says you have to want it. You have to really want it first. Second, you have to aspire for it. And third, you have to bring all these vibrations, whatever come to you from outside, and put them in front of this higher light. And then slowly, in this way, regularly, it can be transformed.
Also the witness position, the stepping back, a very important exercise. Go back into yourself. Don't keep your consciousness so exteriorized. The exteriorization of consciousness also lands us into a lot of trouble.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are at the end of our time. And if you could give us your feedback, there is a feedback link, so you could click on it and please your thoughts and ideas how to develop this interaction in the better way. Thank you very much, Ameeta. Thank you, Anuradha, for this beautiful interaction. I hope we meet again many times and develop this line of thinking in education and in our life. Namaste.
Yes.